G'day and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different but kind of the same. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Old school only is go. You know those really cool paint jobs you see that look like they're 100 years old, but they're brand new? The cracks, all the crow's footing and all that kind of stuff. Well, I found out how to do it and I'm going to show you. Now, no one told me, no one would tell me. It was trial and error. Speaking to a couple of spray painter mates gave me some tips. It wasn't a process that they ever tried to achieve. It's something they tried to avoid, but I worked it out and we're going to do this little sporty tank here. It's just a spare tank off a project I was going to do, never happened. So let's begin. So the first thing I'm going to do is leave all that rust because I want that rust. You'll see why in a minute. But I've given it a wipe down with Prepsol, wax and grease remover. And I'm going to go and get some grease now. So what I'm doing, I'm putting grease on the areas that I don't want the paint to stick. And the more ununiform you make it, the more realistic it's going to look. Just do dabs, bits and pieces here and there. Another way you can do it is with salt. So the next stage is enamel paint. Not just any old enamel paint, because if you have the stuff that dries too fast, you won't get the effect. So this stuff has a touch dry of about 2 hours. I generally leave it for an hour. And so we'll paint this black, leave it for an hour, and we'll come back and I'll show you what we do next. I'm not bothering with primer because I want this to look like an old paint job. And if we get a bit of metal coming through, happy days. Righto, so there you go. That's actually a matte paint. It's going to take a while to change to a matte finish, but you can see all the places where the grease is. And obviously the paint ain't going to stick to those things. Let's just give it a little bit extra. Righto, so I've laid that on pretty thick, and the second part of this process is a decent quality acrylic. Now it does stick. It's not the best paint job, as you can see, because it's got to be thick, and I'm just trying to do this quickly to show you how it works. You need the two different paints. The enamel dries slow, the acrylic dries fast, causes a shell over the top. So what I'm going to paint it with now is an acrylic paint. This is gloss black, so this will be the final colour, the final coat. Yeah, you can't really, or you shouldn't really paint acrylic over enamel, but to get this effect, this seems to be the best way to do it. And with decent quality paints, it actually sticks and works. And the reason you leave it is so it doesn't go all crazed. Let it dry, or half dry. I'll give that a couple of minutes and I'll give it one more coat. Righto, so that's done. I'm going to take it inside now because we don't need to be outside anymore. We'll let this paint harden slightly, and then we're going to shock the hell out of it. Righto, you can see how the cold and the heat is affecting the paint a little bit. Don't worry about that too much. I'm in my kitchen and I've set my oven to 50 degrees, and I'm going to put this fuel tank in the oven. Don't do this with a tank that's had fuel in it, please. This is a brand new tank. Put the fuel tank in the oven and let it bake for about 10 minutes with the fan, and then I'll show you the next step. And just for those people overseas, 50 degrees Celsius, which is a stinking filthy hot day in Australia. So you shouldn't make the paint melt. If you go too hot, you'll have the paint bubble and melt and carry on, and you don't want that to happen. You just want it to bake in there for a bit. Righto, so we're 10 minutes. It's nice and hot. Too hot to touch. So let me grab some bits and pieces to pick this thing up, and we're going to chuck it straight in the freezer. Righto, so we're in the freezer. Like I said, we're going to shock this paint. And because we've got two types of paint with different drying times, with the acrylic and enamel, you watch what happens to this thing in about, I don't know, half an hour. We'll come back and check it. Righto, it's been 30 minutes. What we're going to do now is chuck it back in the oven for 10 at 50 degrees. And I'm going to do this a couple more times, and then when it's ready, I will show you the result. So there are products you can buy, Crackle paint and mediums and all that kind of stuff. They don't give a natural effect. I've tried a couple of different ones. I've looked online at all the different types. It doesn't give a natural crack. It makes a chemical reaction and spreads the paint apart. So this process gives you, it speeds up the aging process and gives you natural cracks in your paint. It has, for me, fuel tank, rear guard, and a test panel all worked. I can't see why this isn't going to work either. And so the science behind it, not that I'm a scientist, but we're making the metal expand and retract with the heat and the cold. We're also doing that with the paint. And then we've got two different types of paint, and it's doing it at different rates. So that's kind of how it works, I guess. Science with Paulie G. So I've repeated that process now about 4 times. I'm seeing cracks in the paint. What I'm going to do now is just leave it in the freezer overnight and just let everything just freeze. Tomorrow we'll drag it out, put it in the sun, and we'll see the result. Righto, it's the next day. Let's get this thing outside, give it a wipe over, and see what we got. Oh yeah, lots of cool cracks. We'll let it thaw out. But it's done its job nicely. Righto, it's had a bit of time to thaw out. And you can see a ton of cracks in the paint. And I am 100% certain that as time goes by, more will develop and those cracks will get wider. But they are a lot more natural looking cracks than this stuff. Yeah, trying to find somewhere without glare is a bit difficult. But there's the result. That's come up awesome. And as time goes on, those cracks are going to increase and the age will develop. But we've given it a really good head start. So I just hit it with some 1000, a little bit of 40 steel wool, and then some polish, and it has enhanced the effect. The more time you spend on it, the better it's going to be. But that was just a quickie. The question I asked myself in the process of working out how to do this, how does the stuff crack in the first place? Well, one, it's really old. It's generally the paint and whatever is underneath the paint is really thick, and the weather has beaten the hell out of it. Sun, cold, all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much what I've replicated, and it works. So yeah, something different but kind of the same. I'm riding at the patina, and I like to make things look original, especially when you're matching panels to original patina. I like to learn the tricks, and that's another one that I've learnt. Doing it with big panels might be an issue. You could probably do it with heat guns and cold water and stuff like that, but smaller stuff you can stick in your oven and your freezer. I've got all the jetting sorted out in the Tirana behind me there. I did put a post up about it. People are asking to hear it running, so what I might do, I'll do a video of it. We'll go for a drive, and we'll try and set up some cameras and see how that turns out. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that. That's it from me. Stay tuned, be good to your mates, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.